This is the FIFA World Cup, the most watched sporting event on Earth. And a few weeks ago, the man who runs it tried to sell a piece of it. Not to a country, not to a sponsor, to a private equity firm for $4.2 billion. The whole thing was valued at $20 billion. The lead investor was a firm tied to the family of the President of the United States. And the man arranging the sale had quietly written himself into it. A brand new job, on the other side of the deal, paying $30 million a year. 10 times what he makes now. Within 72 hours, it all fell apart. Europe threatened to boycott the World Cup. His own hand-picked advisors resigned in protest. And for the first time in 9 years, Gianni Infantino, the most powerful man in football, looked like he might actually lose his job. Here's what makes it strange. FIFA isn't broke. It just posted the biggest numbers in its history, $13 billion. So how does the man running the most profitable machine in sports end up fighting to survive? This is the autopsy of the week. FIFA's spell finally broke. Start with a bit of history, because it matters. Infantino didn't build FIFA, he inherited it as a reformer. In 2015, his predecessor, Sepp Blatter, was brought down by the biggest corruption scandal in the history of sports. Dawn raids on a luxury hotel in Zurich, FBI arrests, decades of bribery laid bare. Infantino rode in the next year on a promise to clean FIFA up. 10 years later, he's the one his own staff would call a one-man show. Now, what FIFA actually is, because it's one of the strangest businesses on the planet. Officially, it's a non-profit, a Swiss association that exists to promote football. In practice, it runs a monopoly on the single most valuable event in sports, and it prints money. For the 4-year cycle ending with the 2026 World Cup, FIFA is on track for a record $13 billion, up 72% from the Qatar cycle, and more than double what it made a decade ago. Nearly $9 billion comes from one tournament, 45% of it from selling television rights. And here's the thing about that money. FIFA has no competition. If you love football, there is exactly one World Cup, and FIFA owns it. Fans aren't customers who can walk away. They're a captive audience. And FIFA has spent years proving it knows that. Look at the World Cup it just hosted on American soil. FIFA rolled out dynamic pricing, airline-style tickets that float with demand. A single seat to the final started around $6,000, and at FIFA's own face value, climbed to nearly $33,000. Not scalpers on the resale market, FIFA itself. Local fans got priced out. Multiple U.S. states opened investigations. And cameras still caught stretches of empty seats in soccer-mad cities because the people who wanted to be there couldn't afford to be. Then, for the first time in the World Cup's history, FIFA staged a Super Bowl-style halftime show at the final. 11 minutes of Madonna, Shakira, BTS, and Coldplay dropped into the middle of a World Cup final. And that is the tell. Because a World Cup is not the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is a spectacle, entertainment first, sport second. Watched by around 120 million people, almost all of them American. A World Cup final is watched by roughly 1.5 billion people on every continent on Earth. Football is the biggest sport in human history. 3.5 billion fans, hundreds of leagues, a game people build their identity around before they can walk. And measured as a whole, it is the richest sport on the planet. European clubs alone pull in over $30 billion a year, and that's before you count the rest of the world. The NFL, the single richest league that exists, makes around $23 billion. But that's one league, in one country. Football is a global civilization. The Super Bowl is a great show, and Infantino keeps running the first like it's the second. Squeezing the most watched event on Earth for $30,000 tickets and pop stars. As if the point were the entertainment instead of the game. The year before, the new Club World Cup told the same story. half-empty stadiums, slashed prices, while Infantino stood inside Trump Tower and called it already the most successful club competition in the world. That's the pattern. Squeeze the fans, ape the Super Bowl, bank the record revenue. For 9 years it worked, because where else are you going to go? So this summer, riding that record, Infantino tried something bigger. The plan was called FIFA Forward Enterprise. Take everything about FIFA that makes money, the broadcast rights, the sponsorships, the tickets, and spin it into a new company. Value it at $20 billion. Sell up to 20% to outside investors. Raise around $4.2 billion in cash. The cornerstone investor was Thrive Capital, the firm founded by Josh Kushner, brother of Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law. JP Morgan came in to advise. And on paper, FIFA had an answer for everything. It keeps 80%. It keeps total control. Investors get no vote and no seat. And every one of its 211 member federations gets a check. $20 million up front, and tens of millions more over the next decade. FIFA's line was simple. Nobody is selling football. It's just unlocking value. Quick thing before we go on. We're a small channel doing these breakdowns, and if you're getting something out of this one, subscribing genuinely helps us more than you'd think. It's free, and it's one click. Because underneath that clean pitch was the part that blew everything up. The man selling this deal to FIFA's members had also drawn up his own exit. According to reporting from the Times, once his term as president ended, Infantino was set to run this new company himself. Commissioner of FIFA Forward Enterprise, at a base salary north of $30 million a year. Right now, as president, he makes around $3 million. A 10 times raise written into the same deal he was asking everyone else to approve. So look at what he was really proposing. Sell a piece of football's crown jewel to private investors. Hand every federation a check to say yes. And on the way out the door, install himself in a brand new $30 million job running the thing he just sold. FIFA's own chief operating officer would say the staff had been deceived, that it was, quote, the project of one person. And that is the moment the spell broke. Because this time, Infantino didn't just annoy the fans. He reached into the pockets of the only people in football who actually have power over him. The confederations. Europe went first. UEFA, the richest, most powerful bloc in the sport, called the plan irresponsible and indefensible, said it had been conceived in secret, and drew a hard line. The World Cup is not for sale. Then it threatened the one thing FIFA cannot survive: a boycott of the World Cup itself. Without Europe's teams, the tournament is worthless. Asia and North America followed with their own rejections. Then it got personal. Carlos Cordero, one of Infantino's most senior advisors, resigned in protest, calling it a bad deal for FIFA's member associations, a bad deal for football, and a bad deal for the long-term future of the game. From announcement to collapse took about 72 hours. Infantino scrapped the entire plan. The most powerful man in football, forced into full retreat in a single weekend. So here's the real lesson, and it's bigger than football. For 9 years, Infantino betrayed the people who loved the game and paid no price. Qatar and its migrant workers, Saudi Arabia, handed the 2034 World Cup uncontested. Winter tournaments that break the calendar, $30,000 tickets. He could do all of it because the fans are captive. A customer who can't leave is a customer you can ignore. But the confederations are not captive. They have votes. They have leverage. They can walk. And the instant his deal threatened their control of the sport and enriched him personally on the way out, the people with real power did in 72 hours what millions of angry fans could never do in 9 years. That's the mechanism. And it's true of every business, not just this one. You can exploit customers who can't leave for a very long time. You cannot do the same to the stakeholders who can fire you. The moment you get greedy enough to threaten them, that's the moment the monopoly spell breaks. Infantino isn't gone. He's already scrambling, reportedly trying to reach President Trump by phone. The man he named the first ever winner of FIFA's new Peace Prize only months earlier. He still intends to stand in March for a fourth term that FIFA's own rules were written to forbid. He may well survive, but something changed this summer. The man who couldn't be touched got touched, and all 211 federations just watched it happen. So here's the question, and I read every reply. And was this a one-time overreach, or the first crack in the most powerful monopoly in sports? Tell me in the comments. And if you want another organization that mistook a captive audience for a loyal one, there's an autopsy on the right. This is Crater. See you at the next collapse.